Hi guys, you're welcome back for a second attempt at this particular podcast, and it's called How to Break a Spiritual or Trauma Bond with a Narcissist, how to break free of the spiritual energy zone that a narcissist often leaves us trapped in post-discard or post-a-close relationship with one. First of all, a shout out to you guys who watched the first version of this where there was no sound in the podcast, and you alerted me really quickly, so I was able to delete it. And we're now remaking this particular episode. Very strange things have happened actually in the last 24 hours, and this is the third anomaly in relation to something not working out. The first was going through, a car park barrier where you take a ticket and the thing lifts up. I took a ticket and the thing didn't lift up, so I had to reverse out. And then coming out of it, even though I had the ticket stamped in the gym, it still wouldn't work. So the guy at the barrier was like, I don't know. I was saying, I think I do. So anyway, something else happened, and then the sound didn't record on the podcast. And as you know, I believe in the dark and the light energy forces that are around us. So the only thing we can do in these circumstances is change our reaction to what happens. My reaction in the face of adversity is to try and make a better podcast. So that's what we're going to try and do in relation to this particular topic, which is kind of an organic carry-on from the last podcast, where we were describing a kind of a wheel that we get stuck on in life, some of us, maybe even the majority of us, because as human beings experiencing the human dynamic, there is no one that gets away with a kind of a perfect life where we don't have earlier experiences that, can keep us locked into a certain behavior pattern. Some of us perhaps more than others, but even people who haven't experienced, a narcissistic parent will often come up against a narcissist in school or in the workplace or amongst friends. So again, how we react to a situation is down to either getting stuck on what I call the wheel of behavior patterns and keep getting triggered by the familiar circumstances of interacting with a narcissist and keep reacting in the same way, so that we're kind of trauma bonded in a pattern of behavior that only we can change. And I'm very excited about this particular podcast because I remember when I was stuck on that phase, discarded by the narcissist, in survival mode, without a lot of hope of wanting to continue, thinking I'd never be happy again. All those very negative, dark feelings where you feel trapped and traumatized, where you ruminate about the relationship with the narcissist, trying to figure out what went on and really just trying to move on and not being able to. Feeling essentially imprisoned in a psychological prison that doesn't have any walls. That's really hard to describe to anybody exactly how it feels or, what you went through. And people will kind of mistakenly try and encourage you to move on or just, put it in the past. All those attempts to be helpful, which aren't, because you don't know how. So basically what I'm saying to you is, after a lot of research, coaching, personal experience, I have come up with a theory, I'm sure others have as well, but this is just my version of it, that we need to be in charge of our brain. And I'm going to get into how we can do that, giving you some tools for becoming the master of your brain and therefore being able to break the trauma bond and the energy field that the narcissist will leave you stuck in, wants you stuck in, needs you to be stuck in, so that they can either come back and hoover or feel validated by their own version of what a human being is and how to navigate Earth and humanity. And their way of looking at life, in that they go out and take and destroy and steal and believe that that's the way life should be, believe that's the human experience, believe that's people have to be superior to each other. And in a way, that is translating down into our young people, where there are narcissistic societies, and we need to change that. And we can change that by our own behavior and by re-engaging with people and being human beings, being the version of the human beings that we want to be, that we believe in, being, versed in joy, in peace, in love, in kindness, in generosity, in productivity, in encouragement, in all those things that essentially make the human race survive as a human race. And the more we put that out into the world, the more we support each other, the more we support the learning about narcissism, the better chance our young people have of having something to hold on to and not going down into the narcissist version of reality and believing that that's the way to be. So enough about the overall picture about narcissism. Let's get down to the practicalities of what we're talking about here in relation to breaking free of a prison you may feel that you're still in. So what is a trauma bond? Essentially, a trauma bond is being bonded to traumatic experiences from our youth or from the last relationship we have with a narcissist. So essentially, the trauma bond from our youth is the picture people fed back to us about who we are, the negativity, the patterns of not supporting us, and us getting onto that wheel of reacting to those situations, but staying within the wheel of those beliefs. So that's what we, carry to a certain extent forward as we try and progress in life, meet a narcissist who really takes us down, who really re-triggers those feelings that we have about ourselves. Even if we'd hopped off the wheel before, they get us well back and truly onto that wheel. And in the trauma bond with the narcissist, when the narcissist leaves, we're stuck on that wheel, going around and around and around in our head and not progressing and not finding a way off, finding niches in the wheel maybe where we survive, but all the time our brain is stuck and we can't seem to move forward. So now I would like to discuss the various frequencies of energy that our brain maintains us in and how to change that pattern. So it's literally how to manipulate our brain to break the trauma bond with the narcissist and to get off that wheel for once and forever and for good. And to actually not just survive. As you know, I advocate there's a hell of a lot more to life than just surviving. But initially to survive the narcissistic dynamic and the awful results of the cruelty of a narcissist. But to actually go on and to really thrive, to really find our true purpose, to find out who we really are and to decide who we really want to be and how we really want to go forward, and to use this experience to propel ourselves into a future that is so much better than our past. So in order to do that, I would like to tell you a bit about what I've learned. And again, I'm a commoner gardener survivor of narcissistic abuse, who has gone through the journey and is still on a journey. It's a never-ending journey, but out the other side, let us say, of the survival mechanism. So I'd like to look at the brainwaves, give you a brief explanation in my own opinion of what I've learned, and then look at methods to overcome. So in general, as far as I understand, in our everyday lives, in our consciousness, in how we do things, what decisions we make, in our analytical abilities, we are in the beta or beta brainwave frequencies in general in the daytime. That's fine and healthy so long as that is interspersed with other brainwave frequencies and we're not continually in the beta frequency. The top frequency that we can actually go into, there may be one above this, but this is a pretty high level of living your best life, is the alpha brainwave energy frequency. And essentially that frequency is getting us to a very calm, tranquil, peaceful state where we're still conscious, but we're in a kind of conscious state of flow, bringing the subconscious in, where we're sending out magnetic frequencies to people and things that are on that same frequency. And that's going to be bringing in and out good stuff into your life. It's about being able to create. It's about being able to explore the entrepreneurial side of yourself. It's about basically living outside the box. It's about possibilities, infinite possibilities. And it's a fantastic place to be able to get to and to be. There's a delta frequency, which is a frequency of the brain energy when we're sleeping. And that's also necessary for a healthy functioning and existence. And then there is the theta brainwave, which is actually a very interesting one. The theta brainwave is something that occurs when we're actually conscious in our waking hours, but where we're daydreaming, where we're a bit removed from what's going on around us. And we're thinking conceptually, we're thinking about ideas. We're like sitting looking at the sea and we're, feeling things and emotions and imagining things. And they're all, with a combination of all, makes for a healthy person having a good life experience. Now, the state of anxiousness is when we stay in the beta brain frequency, and we don't have any relief from that. So we're basically on the go all the time. The brain is swirling, it's in a wheel, it's in a kind of a rut thinking mode. It's going from one thing to the other, to back to the same thing to the other. And it's not going higher into the alpha state, or it's not even going into the positive theta state. I want to just come back to that in a minute. And it's having an interrupted delta state where it's not sleeping properly. And that is the anxious state of affairs, where there's an overstimulation of the beta state, and there's not much alpha wave frequency going on. There's not much beta wave frequency going on, but there is theta wave frequency. But in my opinion, the anxious state is a lot of beta waves where you're going round and round in circles, trying to figure things out, ruminating on the narcissist, not making any progress because you're stuck. The triggers are coming from your past. The ideas about the narcissist are reinforcing negative thought patterns, and you're not getting anywhere. And you feel stuck, and you are stuck. And that's why these exercises after this, I hope, will change that situation for you. I believe there's also theta waves going on in that it's not a healthy daydreaming where we're looking at prospects for progress within ourselves. But I believe this is my version of what's going on when you're in the discard phase, when you're in the trauma bond still with the narcissist, is that the theta waves type of daydreaming is more a traumatic disassociation result, where you're experiencing your world from like looking at your world and interactions with it like as if you're on a movie set. So your thought process is delayed. And again, this is a traumatic experience. So the theta waves frequency and energy that you're putting out, I believe, is like if someone came up to you at a party and asked you, do you want a knife or fork to eat that with? You're kind of going, knife or fork to eat that with? And you're kind of going, fork, please. So your brain is on a different frequency and wavelength. It's not immediately interacting with what's going on. It can be in the beta state where it's playing over and over again the scenario of what you went through with the narcissist. In any case, if you've experienced this, please leave it in the comments, because that was my experience of the trauma of the post-discard of the narcissist. Okay, so what we're aiming to do with these following tools or exercises would be to decrease anxiety, to get off the never-ending wheel of the negative reinforcement, the memories of the narcissist, the staying stuck cycle, and bringing ourselves out of that cycle into a more objective, creative, holistic state of being by commanding our brain to stop keeping us stuck and safe. Because the brain is designed to keep us safe in life. The brain is designed for our survival. But in some ways, if we don't harness its power, it's a primitive enough, even though it's a spectacular design and spectacular potentiality. If we don't take charge of it, it keeps us stuck on the survival safe cycle. And believe it or not, if we've experienced abuse and it's familiar to us, psychological, emotional, and other abuse, literally, we know how to process it, and it's familiar to us. So the brain says going over it is okay because you know how to deal with it. You know how to stay safe now, but it won't allow you to move any further than that. So it ruminates and ruminates because it's a familiar space, and at least it knows if you're ruminating, you're staying safe. Therefore, unless you stand outside the brain and say, okay, brain, we're going to go on a different journey. I've had enough of that. And the brain says, oh no, Paula, that could be dangerous. And you say, listen, brain, I've had enough of this rumination. This isn't getting me anywhere. Therefore, the rumination is a danger to my survival. And you tell the brain that, and you say, I'm in charge. I'm your boss. You're not my boss. I love you. I know you want to keep me safe. I know you're doing the very best job you can with the information I've programmed into you, but I need to reprogram you, essentially. So how do we do that? Exactly, how do we do that? The first thing we need to do, and it seems pretty obvious, is to remove ourselves physically from, and in other ways, from the narcissist's energy field. Because essentially, the narcissist energy field does not match ours. And as it matches ours, or has matched ours in the past, we've been vibrating on a very low frequency. So if we want to, let's say, reach our best frequency wavelength or channel, we need to not have the static of the narcissist's low radio frequency going on in our lives. We need to have clear transmission capabilities. So we need to move out of that energy field as a very starting position for this new challenge that we're seeking to reach a better frequency within ourselves and to channel into ourselves our best, totally best selves and best life and best protection against narcissistic transmissions ever getting in again. And also to leave ourselves open to supreme and superior transmissions that are going to bring us to a more enlightened place in life, a more progressive place in life, a more self-validating place in life, and a very much more self-defining place in life. This is just one life. It's got so many possibilities and potential. The narcissistic dynamic and that survival mechanism is so tiny and so debilitating and so compressing and so awful. We are so much more than that. So much more. So don't let them keep you in a prison of our own making or our brains making and thinking that we're safe there. We are not. The next thing to do is to believe in yourself, to believe that this can get better. Because if you're going around saying, I feel awful, I am never going to recover from this, I don't trust anybody, I am never getting into another relationship, that becomes the truth. That becomes the reality that you're making for yourself, even though you don't want it to be your reality. If you keep repeating that to brain says, okay, Paula, I hear you. That's what you want to keep you safe. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to keep you stuck on the wheel because you know what the wheel is like, don't you? You know what the wheel is like. So if that's what you want, that's the reality we'll make. Believing there's a better way, believing there's a better future, believing that you can take control of your brain is essential for this practice. The third thing, and this is, to me, this is mind-blowing. This is mind-blowing. And I know you say, well, I've heard that before, you know. A combination of all of these things will break the trauma bond with the narcissist, I promise you. Meditation taken seriously, learnt and practiced. When we're able to get into the meditative state, we enter the alpha brainwave frequency energy place where we can objectively look at our situation and objectively depersonalize from it, look at it with analysis that's from a peaceful, educated place, with compassion, and with a creative impetus to want better and to know there's better and to attract better by being in a manifesting state where we know and believe that we are capable of so much better. We're capable of infinite possibilities. And that is very, very exciting. Maybe so far off where you are at the moment, but wouldn't you like to get there? So my recommendations for getting into the meditative state, and I know that hypnosis can also bring you into these alpha brain wave places, and you're essentially, as an analogy, taking a carving knife and shredding that rope rope that ties you to the trauma bond and the wheel, the anxious beta state where all you're doing is going round and round and round and round and round in circles and never achieving anything. It's literally like severing that rope from the trauma bond and flying free to your potential, to the possibilities that are endless for you if you just believe in them. And in order to raise your radio frequencies, your brain frequencies, practicing what I've said before and what I'm going to say now will really free you. So I know I was looking online there to see if I could come up with any recommendations for meditation, which is free, which you can do at home, which you can do for 15 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, whatever works into your routine. I know that Deepak Chopra, I think that's the way you say his name, has a 21-day, it's a meditation for manifestation, but you can do a meditation for anything. But he actually essentially is training people how to meditate, you know, that are total beginners to meditation. So, I mean, YouTube is great for everything. Look, you know, just check into it, meditation starters or whatever, beginners, and see what it's like. There's nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose. It's you lying down for 15 minutes. If nothing else, you get a rest, like himself over there. So, yeah, if nothing else, you'll get a rest. Okay. Another one, of course, is the normal exercise. Exercise brings in the serotonin levels eventually, and it brings you into the alpha wave state. So that's a no-brainer. Exercise is a no-brainer. I know you say, well, Paula, I'm depressed. I can't get motivated to exercise. I would suggest you start by going up the stairs once a day, by getting out of bed, by having a shower, by whatever you consider is exercise for you or is more than you did yesterday. I know how hard it is. I'm not underestimating that. What I'm trying to do here is tell you there is hope. There is this, maybe it's not new, maybe it's been here since the 60s, I don't know, I'm not well versed in it, but I do know that there are a lot of workshops and courses and new beliefs in breathing. I know, again, you'll say, well, I'm doing that, that's not working. This is a practice, a breathing practice, where you learn to deeply breathe and breathe in patterns. As far as I'm aware of it, I know one of our community members is going to tell me more about it. I'm going to meet you soon. You're going to tell me more about these workshops. But from what I've heard, it's a fantastic relaxation exercise that brings you into parts of your brain, excuse me, that you've never been before. Excuse me. It's like going into, it's being described as going into nearly the, what would you call it, the experience you'd have from experience similar to narcotic experience, those kind of amazing experiences that are induced sometimes by substances. Obviously not recommending that, and it's obviously a very negative way to have, you know, your brainwaves elevated, not recommended. But this breathing technique actually brings you to amazing alpha waves in your brain, that kind of frequency where it's like an out of body experience. So that's amazing to think that you can do that just by changing how you breathe and having a breathing workshop. That is mind blowing to think that something like that can work. The other thing that I have found really interesting is auditory stimulation. Auditory stimulation can bring you to those places as well, and out of the anxious making beta state, where you can become a more healthy version of yourself and really leave the trauma bond flat on its belly, where you just don't want to engage with it at all. So I have found, I'll give you two recommendations. I've taken over the last year to listening to this great Irish radio channel called Lyric FM, where they play a lot of classical music. And I do know that you probably know that, like, there are certain sounds, I think when people sing in choirs and things, certain music, like religious music, that can bring us into those amazing brain states, like the alpha state. I would say that this classical music, and I'll give you two songs or two music pieces that I've listened to recently while driving along, that have brought me into that state. So you're still aware, like, of, you know, driving, and you're still aware of things, but you are someplace else. And by gosh, it is such a tranquil, beautiful, peaceful, blissful state of just feeling existence, feeling all existence, feeling connected to everything, everyone, every atom, like we're all totally connected and we all are us. We're all one. There is no difference between you or I other than the energy frequency. that we're giving out. And I know being in this state is so freeing and positive in that you feel anything can happen. You know, if I go in a direction, if I want something, I can put that energy into that thought and that place. I can go there and be there. And things, it's like you're giving out a magnetic frequency, and it's magnetizing the same frequency of things and people towards you. It is a phenomenal experience. Now, I'll give you my recommendations of the music pieces. Please, if you've experienced this state of blissful ecstasy, leave your recommendations down. The ones I have found recently best is, excuse my French accent, but Rêverie by Debussy, and the other one was Clair de Lune by Debussy. I believe one is something to do with dreams, and I'm guessing the other is either Light of the Moon or The Clarity of the Moon. But those two pieces are so exquisite. I would highly recommend them. In any case, that's another way to get to the alpha state, brainwave. Okay, here's an interesting one. Here's an interesting one that I didn't know before researching. I thought this happened with everybody, that I know most people have an internal dialogue. You know, obviously the brain works like that, where in your decision-making processes, etc. I didn't understand that people don't actually have conversations in their head and talk to themselves, say as they go along doing their housework. You know, you're vacuuming and you're having this conversation with yourself, you're chatting away to yourself. And I hope when the podcast goes out, the men in white coats don't come to the door and say, Paula, we're going to take you to a little house, a safe place. I have conversations in my head. They say some people do, and it starts as a child when your brain is forming and functioning, in that some of us talk to ourselves and have a vocabulary going on, and other people will visually make their ideas come, I think, rather than the auditory or the conversations in the head. And other people don't have conversations in their head, but they have a different thinking process. Whatever process you have or don't have, I know that there's a lot of negative talk or negative speak, negative things we can tell ourselves automatically that come out. Like if you make a mistake or you trip up or you break something, you know, there's this voice that says, you idiot, you total twit, you know, you're so careless, you don't care about anything. And the overall thing of that is you're a failure, you're a loser. You know, the background music playing is that's the message it's giving you. And that is the automatic triggering self-talk that keeps us on the wheel. So instead, we're going to say, excuse me, brain, I'm not interested in hearing any of that anymore. That program is obsolete. I'm rewriting your program. So the next time I happen to break something, we go, oops, I wonder why that happened. And our reaction to it will make a difference in reinforcing the program we've programmed into the brain, saying we're not all that bad. If we made a mistake at that, there may be other circumstances causing that to happen, or we can look at that again and do better. But it doesn't mean we're a total failure because we made a mistake. I know you get the point, guys. It's positive talk, positive chat that needs to go on in the brain. When the brain automatically goes to, Paula, you're a bad girl, you say, excuse me? I put in a new program to you. Now, why aren't you listening to me, brain? You and I need to work together on this. So you say, Paula, you're a good girl. Could you have done that better? Yes, probably. No, maybe. No, that was really good. That was my best attempt. So that's really important in relation to taking charge of your beautiful brain and giving it a chance. You know, giving it a chance. Brain was planted in your body in a certain circumstance in life. And it's taken in what your ears have heard, what your eyes have seen, and what's been fed back to you. And it's been existing with its brain music going on, in its brain waves, in its best ability to protect you and to keep you alive and to keep you surviving. It needs help now. It needs help now. Now that you're an adult, now that you have the capacity to understand some of your experiences that you've been through. And most people are on here in order to do that and change their lives and redefine their lives and make their lives better and not encounter any more narcissists. So now it's time to take care of that brain and to help it by these practices or other practices you may know. And please leave more information for people here. This is your chance to retrain your brain, reprogram your brain, to look at yourself and decide, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in this life? What do I want to achieve? What are my dreams? Why have I shut down in my dreams? Why am I ignoring my dreams? Because other people told me that I couldn't do that? What makes them experts in what I can and can't do? Why am I limiting myself? Why am I allowing my brain to be programmed by other people? Why? This is your opportunity to advocate for yourself, to nurture and retrain that beautiful brain that's connected to our soul, our essence, our energy, our survival, our thriving, our enlightenment, our self-awareness, and our self-definition. So guys, if this podcast has been of value to you, I have left in the description, or I will leave, 2 links to 2 animal charities that I support. Actually, when I get donations from the channel, I send some of them on to these societies. As you know, I would be a Mr. Remy lover, and I know a lot of you are out there as well with your own pets who sustain us and love us and care for us and get us through the hardest of times. So these 2 charities are called, one is called the Humane Society International, and the other is called the SOI Dog Foundation. Both charities advocate for no more killing of dogs and cats, no more meat farms and meat factories for our beautiful souls. So I'll leave a link if the podcast has been of any value, if you are generous enough or good enough or able, can afford to. If you'd like to make a donation to either of those charities, I would be very grateful for that. Okay, I think that's it for now. On the next podcast, I am going to recommend a book that was sent to me by a member of our community. And I will talk a little bit about that. So look after yourselves. I'm glad to have the opportunity to remake this podcast because I remembered to get a few things in that I didn't in the first. So whatever adverse effect is going on out there in the universe, energy-wise, boo to it. Okay, bye for now.